Robert Plank Show, episode 231. Create a freelance income from scratch and live life on your own terms. From Fiverr voiceover artist, Fiverr ambassador, and host of the Fiverrcast, Red Horrocks. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the program. Our guest today is Red Horrocks, and she is a Fiverr top-rated seller. She's the host of the Fiverrcast. She does all kinds of cool stuff. So, Red, welcome to the program.
Thanks very much for having me.
So can you sort of tell us like who you are and what you do and what makes you stand out and all that good stuff?
Sure. My name is Red Horrocks, and I am a voice actor. I've been working on voiceovers for about 13, 14 years now, and I work primarily on Fiverr. It's actually about 90% of my income, but I do also work a few other places and have a few other external clients and side projects. I have a little unique quirk in that I'm actually from the southeast of England, so I'm actually British, and I live in the United States, so I can flip my accent back and forth between the two, which is my little party trick. And I also spent 10 years in Georgia, so I can go very southern, so I say y'all instead of you all. And so that gives me a little bit of an interesting niche and has been very helpful in my business. And that's kind of the short version of who I am and what I do.
Cool. And yeah, and I was gonna say because like I've heard you on your own show and on Lance's show and other things where you're like more British and more American. So that's so cool. I'm so jealous that you can just sort of change up your speaking style. And I know that you've had like some like news articles written about you, and I think you have something like 13,000 gigs on this site called Fiverr doing voiceovers and stuff like that. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Actually, I have 13,000 reviews on my main gig on Fiverr. What I actually have is 27,000 completed projects on Fiverr alone, and
Awesome.
have over 3,000 completed projects on other sites as well. Um, so Fiverr it's a really cool site. It's a marketplace for anyone who can come in and buy and sell mostly digital based products. It's the gig economy. So you purchase things in anywhere from very, very small increments all the way up to audiobooks for voiceovers for me. The kicker with Fiverr is that most services do have an entry level of $5. So it makes professional quality work a lot more affordable and a lot more accessible for those of us who wish to work in a digital environment. For me, it's particularly helpful because I have a very strong presence on the site and I've been on there for a really long time, so I have great reviews. Um, and everyone always says, well, how can you do that from $5 at a time? It's because my orders aren't just $5 at a time. So I have extras available that you can buy. So you might buy a 125 word voicemail for $5, but then you might pay another $10 to get it delivered to you in 24 hours. And you might pay $15 to add music to it. And it starts small and then it incrementally builds. The other benefit of working on somewhere like Fiverr for me is I love what I do, but I would always much rather spend my time doing what I do. I'm not crazy about having to go out and play the hustle and do the proposals and, you know, really spend a chunk of my time growing my business in any other way other than just doing what I do and working directly with my customers. So for me, working on somewhere like Fiverr, I get all my marketing built in. They do it all for me. So I don't have to spend, 20 hours a week doing the digital hustle trying to grow my client base. It's there. I've got it built for me. All I have to do is maintain my reputation and continue to work well with the clients that I have and the new clients that I get. And it's a really great business method, actually. I quite like it.
And I know those things that you listed, those are what I like. I think that those are the kind of things that make Fiverr unique, and those are what I like from Fiverr as sort of both a buyer and a seller. Because you mentioned there that like as a buyer, people can start or they can get something small for $5, and then as a seller, it's really cool because there isn't like all the auditioning stuff, and because like I remember whenever I used to have to hire people on like Upwork or like some other sort of platform, and which is like a great platform, but the one thing I didn't like was I would post a job and there would be like 200 people auditioning, and I'd have to narrow it down, and maybe like a week later I would actually hire someone. And I really like on Fiverr that I can just find something, I can find someone to do a voiceover or a voicemail, click the button, pay it, and then it's done, and then I can sort of to add on there as well. And so I mean, so you mentioned that okay, so you have 27,000 completed projects on Fiverr and 30,000 completed projects on other sites. And so, I mean, how many hours per day are we talking? Like, what's your workload sort of like?
So it's $3,000 for 30,000 total. So
Okay.
just to, I'm pretty awesome, but I have my,
Okay,
I
so
mean,
27 plus 3 is 30,000 total.
yes,
Okay,
it's
sorry about
okay.
that.
I am not in voiceovers because I'm good at math. So it took me a second too. So I'm actually really, really lucky because I spend most of my time just in studio because what I've been able to do is kind of streamline my process. I have an amazing assistant and she helps me out with a lot of my basic admin work. So responding to messages that don't necessarily need anything more than a quote. She handles that kind of thing for me. And she also, I have this really, really neat data entry system which she puts all of my orders into for me so that when I go into the studio, I basically have everything laid out exactly how I want it. So I only spend about 4 hours a day in studio on a weekday and maybe an hour a day on the weekends. There's days when if I have like a really large project that can take up more time, like if I had, say, a 7 to 10,000 word project, that would be a very large amount of recording time. So that's where I have the wiggle room to go into that kind of overflow time. But for the most part, it's very rare for me to work more than 5 hours. However, I do maintain my messaging and maintain my communication with clients all throughout the day. So there's still a level of activity even when I'm not necessarily in my studio. I'm still checking my messages and making sure everything's all fine and put together and stuff like that.
Awesome. And so yeah, and what kind of blew me away about you in particular and some of the other top-rated sellers? Like I've only heard a few of the episodes of the Fiverr cast, but some of you guys were talking about like having like waking up to 50 orders or like something crazy. And that's cool that that you're able to sort of like take all those orders and knock them all out one after another and especially with that assistant who sort of lines things up for you. And so one thing I like about Fiverr a lot is that I mean it seems like they sort of advertise a lot. Like if I go to someone's gig and I go to Facebook, it seems like there's like some kind of retargeting ad. If I search for voiceover, then there's some sort of like AdWords ads and stuff like that. And so Fiverr like they do a good job, it seems like, of bringing the traffic. But have you noticed any sort of like ups and downs with Fiverr or with voiceovers? Like do you have like just some like are weekends slow or some parts of the year slow? Like do you have any of those kind of ups and downs there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. As with any business industry, people take time off. I do a lot of corporate work, so I'm doing work for um, businesses that want to do like an instructional training video or small businesses that want their voicemail recorded and things, explainer videos for new products. And a lot of those people do tend to work more on a Monday to Friday. So I usually get anywhere, I'd probably say that I get about 20% of the orders on a weekend day that I would on a weekday. So there's a definite fall off over the weekend as to whether or not, people need things. So you do have kind of quieter times. And then of course with any industry, you've got periods of time that are slower. So the week between Christmas and New Year's is usually slower, and then the 2 weeks after New Year's. So usually a quiet time in voiceover work for that I've seen is usually about mid-December to mid-January. It'll be slower than usual, and then it'll ramp up. And usually the busiest time of the year is early summer, and that's when I tend to get a lot of extra work. So early summer and then again in November is when I have my busiest periods. And I've been tracking. I've been on Fiverr for oh gosh, nearly 4 years now. 4 years this month. So I've had a lot of time to track the trends, and I keep very, very meticulous notes on how many orders I get and how revenues are. So I know kind of roughly in comparison to last year how I'm doing. And that helps you not have that. As a freelancer, it's really easy to have a quiet day and then panic and going like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna have to go back to corporate. I'm never gonna work again. This is it. It's all over. I'm gonna, all that stuff that you talk yourself out into." And then you look back and you realize that it's a random holiday in a different country that you didn't realize, and this exact same thing happened last year.
Awesome. So it's like to avoid that sort of panic mentality, go back and look at those numbers. And so, but I mean, year after year, your business is growing.
Yes. I'm. anywhere from 11 to 29% growth month to month.
Dang.
Um, yeah, I work hard, which is great and awesome, and I'm really lucky. It's gonna peter out eventually, but yeah, I've been very lucky in that I've had a lot of success and a lot of growth, and a lot of it is tenacity and hard work and lots of practice.
And so I mean, is there anything else along those lines as far as like if someone is looking to like get more Fiverr orders or get more exposure, is it just a matter of sort of going through that internship period, so to speak, and just doing the work and then you get those reviews and that just leads to more stuff?
It really is. I know it sucks that there's not this wonderful magic formula that I can say if you do this, this, and this, you'll be massively successful. I've done a lot of mentoring, a lot of coaching of other sellers, and I'm a Fiverr ambassador. So part of my role is to kind of have feelers out into the community and make sure that they're feeling supported, and also to take concerns from the community back to Fiverr, which is a really neat thing that I love that I get to do. But one of the key things that I tell any new seller is your customer service is the most important thing. Your reviews are the most important thing. You can't go wrong with like you can't go wrong with making your clients happy. Um, so especially in the beginning, it's very, very important to enter at a good price point to maintain great relationships with your clients and give beyond 5-star service and go the extra mile. And then there's an option on Fiverr that a lot of people see that you can have where you can answer a buyer request. So buyers who are looking for something and don't necessarily want to spend a lot of time searching on the site will put up a request for work. So if you keep an eye on those, it's another good way to gain clients. The Fiverr search algorithm is a complex mythical creature that I'm sure there's some kind of half unicorn, half leprechaun thing running around Tel Aviv that is the algorithm. And I think one of the key players in it is how many and how high your reviews are for the last, I think it's 60 days. Don't quote me on that, but I'd guess it's at least 60 to 90 days. And that really does affect your ranking. So having consistent work and having consistent reviews allows you to grow. And the more you do well, the higher you are viewed in search and recommended. And then you get more clients and all of that good stuff. It snowballs. Um, my biggest piece of kind of rhetoric that I give to anyone is you never know when your next client's going to become your best client. So that's one of the reasons why I personally strive to provide great customer service. And I think everyone really should too, because you really never know who's going to walk through your front door tomorrow. And it could be someone who will then be your client. I've got one client that has placed over 600 orders with me. And I didn't know that was going to happen on our first order. And it didn't happen. He didn't start amping up with me until he'd worked with me maybe 10 times, and then he took all of his business to me. And he's a huge video explainer seller, and I get to do most of his work for him. And I had no idea when I started working with him that was going to be the case. So, sometimes you get those shining stars that come in, and if you've treated them right and you've worked your best, and you can skyrocket through something like that. You never know.
That's awesome. Yeah, like you never know who that person's going to be, and like I don't do too much Fivering, but I've noticed that sometimes like I'll contact like a whiteboard seller and then I'll say like just letting you know who I am, and then I won't hear from them for like 6 to 9 months, and then after that like it'll be like a sale a week from that one person, and it's like all those little putting out the feelers or like delivering an order early, like I've definitely seen that. And then as far as you mentioned the buyer requests where like sellers can go and see what people are asking for and sort of in a way audition for that, like I really like that because like sometimes I'll see like voiceovers or like others types of things, and I'll see things that like I'm not quite qualified for, and it helps me to sort of get a finger on the pulse of what people want. Like if I see a lot of like translating kind of stuff people are asking for, or like voice acting, I'm like, okay, well I can't do that, but good to know. Or then I saw a lot of people asking for like the female voiceovers, and then I got my girlfriend to start having a gig in my account to deliver like a female voiceover as well. And so you sort of along those lines, like you mentioned that like you do different accents and you've done like different voices like that. Have you sort of done that? Have you sort of like branched out or like added in different sorts of other gigs or different like features on your gigs based on those buyer requests?
Yes, it wasn't based on buyer requests, but definitely based on what clients were coming to me and asking for. If someone asks for something once, it's one thing. But if I have 10 people coming to me in the space of a week who are all asking for something that I don't provide, that's a good time to seriously look at whether or not I should be providing it. So for me, the two things that I added was matching something in timing to a video is very, very popular with, especially with small businesses that are putting together explainer videos and they're kind of trying to do it themselves. They might not have, they might have created a video on something like Powtoon, but they don't have the audio capacity or knowledge in editing to time it out correctly. And a lot of the time they'll come to me and ask me to help them with that. And the other one is background music. I thought adding background music forever. I don't think I added it until about a year ago. And I'm kicking myself for not having it the entire time because it's a really great service to have and it's very popular. I get many, many orders for background music. And once I got good at it, once I got good at mixing it, then, it doesn't take me nearly as long. But initially I was worried about learning the new skill. That's the other thing is you can't be afraid to learn a new skill. It's worth it sometimes to just say, okay, I don't know how to do that, but I wonder if it's really as hard as I think it is. And a lot of the time you'll find it's not.
So sometimes if you have that skill like the video sync or the background music or like multiple files, you're just kind of will you just like put it in there and like wait for that order, or will you like do that extra for free, or like if there's that new skill that people are asking for that you're not quite sure if you can deliver? I mean, what do you do in that kind of situation?
Well, the video timing thing was something that I would provide initially back when I was a newer seller and less experienced on the platform, was something that I would, if someone asked me for, I would do. And then I realized that it was taking a significant portion of my time. So that's when I decided to start charging for it. Background music, I started charging off it. I didn't do it at all. And then when I did, I did it as a paid extra. So the other thing that I've done is my pricing has changed on Timing Match because one of the things that I noticed was very interesting was a lot of buyers really struggled with understanding how much of an extra to order for something like a video timing match. So one of the only things about Fiverr that occasionally does get a mite frustrating is a lot of people are ordering in a hurry and they don't necessarily take the time to read through your requirements correctly, and you have to go back and say, okay, like you ordered this but you didn't order enough of this, or I still need this one piece of information. So recently I switched my video timing to a flat fee for up to a certain amount of time instead of smaller increments, and that's been really very helpful in getting both me being able to deliver work quickly to the buyer because they've ordered the right amount, and also decreased my frustration level.
Yeah, I can imagine like increase that back and forth and just making it like a flat fee so that you get the you don't miss out on a sale just because your pricing could be confusing. And so you mentioned a little bit about like dealing with customers. I know that a lot of people are sort of afraid of like those bad customers who may be like there's like some kind of disagreement or you have to open up a dispute. So I mean, like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, are you the kind of person where like if they ask for something that they didn't order, will you try to like save that sale, or where you usually default to the dispute, or like where do you usually land on that kind of thing?
It's so much of a case by case basis. I will almost always try and work with the client to be able to provide them what they need, whether that's adding in services, adding in time. I try very, very hard to explain carefully to clients. If a client comes to you and something's going to cost them more than they expect, they're going to be, you know, frustrated by it. So sometimes it's really important to take the time to outline to them, okay, this is why this takes more money because it's taking more of my time. This is not a standard thing. This is an extra thing that I will happily do. I just need to be, I need to cover the studio time for it. The only time I will go to cancel an order is if an interaction with a client has gone to the point where they're being rude or they're being, abusive, or they're to an unmanageable amount that we are not a good fit for each other. It's so very, very rare. I generally do believe that every sale can be saved, but there are the occasional one where I say that my spider sense tingles. I normally know right away if it's going to go south, and a lot of the time I'll back away from an order purely because I want to save them the time. I don't want to go 5 rounds with them when I'm clearly not what they're looking for. So I think it's also you kind of have to gauge for yourself whether or not you are the right person for the job. And of course, everyone always wants to be. But if you see something going sideways and you know that you're going to spend way more time with this person and they're probably still not going to be happy, it's usually best to consider, at least if you can't get them what they want, maybe it's better to walk away. And it's always a good idea to try and do that as early in the order process as possible, because obviously you don't want to be delivering and redelivering tons of work at no compensation and then still get, a not so great review. It's just about gauging the client, and that's practice. That's all practice.
And catching those red flags and stuff, and that makes a lot of sense because I mean, yeah, like as the seller, it would be frustrating to have to keep going back and redoing the same thing for free, and then as the buyer, like they're still not happy, like 5 times in, like they're never going to be happy.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. And so, I mean, what would you tell like a new person who's maybe looking into Fiverr about maybe like what they should do? Because I mean, like, do you have any sort of like criteria? Because I know like the voiceover stuff seems like easy for some people to do, but maybe some people aren't as good as a lot of the voice actors on there or have that sort of equipment. I know there's like writing jobs and video jobs and stuff, but like is there maybe like I don't know like some sort of like a checklist or a criteria that someone should keep in mind when they're looking for what kind of gigs, or is it a matter of like make some gigs and see what pans out?
I think you can really go both ways with it. The good thing about Fiverr is it doesn't cost anything to sign up. All it takes is a little bit of your time. And, if you put a gig up and no one buys it, you're not out anything other than the time it took to create it, which honestly, it's a very quick system. So it's not a lot of time investment. Um, some of the markets are very saturated. I personally feel that voiceover is very saturated, especially on the male side. There are a lot of amazing, really talented, hardworking voiceover artists on the site, and it's one of those things where if you do want to do voiceover, you have to have the gear at this point. You have to have a strong studio in order to get into that market. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to capture the sales that you're looking for from the companies from on a professional basis. I mean, if you're not equipped to handle it, it's probably not the best market. But the big thing on Fiverr is it's so diverse, the offerings. There are so many unusual creative gigs that no one would ever think to buy, and probably most people don't think to sell, that do brilliantly. There's a guy who honestly legitimately makes a living dancing in a banana costume on video. So there's kind of no limit to if you're a creative person, or if you're just game for anything, just have a peek around and see if you can find something strange that you can think of a spin-off for, or you can think of an offshoot of. Um, but it's a writing and translation are great because they don't really require any specialist equipment. Logo design, you would have to be proficient in a graphic design program. So it's like you need to cater to your skills and to the equipment that you have on hand. And if you do that, then you can certainly make a go of it.
And I think that's a pretty good starting point if people kind of took that inventory of if they happen to have, like a quiet room, or if they happen to have a fancy microphone, or they happen to have Photoshop, like they could look at what tools they possess, both like hardware and software, and just kind of figure out like where they could fit. And I like your attitude with that too, as far as like it costs you nothing to set up a gig, just put up a gig and try it out. So I mean, have you read Horrocks personally? Have you set up sort of like a crazy gig like that, or do you have any plans of setting up like anything like new and interesting aside from just the voiceover stuff?
I'm very dedicated to my niche. I do have the one thing I do actually sell on Fiverr that is not voiceovers, is I provide Fiverr gig analysis as a service, because I've been doing it I've been on the platform for so long and I'm so familiar with it that that's one of the things that I do provide is if someone has a gig, I'll take a look at it for them. And it was something that I started charging for because I got so many requests for it just from people seeing that I was a top seller. So I decided that I should maybe monetize that stream, purely because I wanted to help everyone, but I just couldn't take so much time out of the studio without getting compensated. I would love to do something really, really ridiculous, but as weird as this may sound, I'm actually very shy. So it would have to be something like that wasn't on video or something like that. Like it would be neat, but unfortunately I'm kind of a one-trick pony.
Okay, fair enough. And yeah, I'm super jealous at some of the Fiverr sellers. Like one of my friends, DJ Dave, he's Tune Man on Fiverr. He has this gig where like he'll just write like one headline for $5, right? I'm jealous of some of the people who had like the user testing gigs where like they'll load up a website and just record their screen and just talk. And I'm just like, oh man, that would be like so easy, and that good blend of like it's easy to fulfill the order, but it's also kind of fun and it doesn't require like any sort of getting outside of that comfort zone. So that's sort of that's pretty interesting. And so I mean, is there anything just in general like that you have planned for the coming year as far as like Fiverr and your freelancing and your business, like anything cool planned in that sort of area?
Well, I've had a side project that I've been working on for about 6 months. It's a website called instantvoicemails.com, and it's a direct download site for voicemails. You can have custom voicemails made, or you can simply download like kind of more generic greetings if you're like in a super big hurry. So I'm hoping to spend a lot of time this year on growing that and expanding the content. I have a couple of other side projects that I'm working on with a couple of partners that are going to take up a little bit of my time, but I don't know if they're really going to go anywhere. So I'm not really going to. It's one of those things like I don't want to shoo the vision away by talking too much about it. But then also, I mean, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I love what I do, and I really love my clients, and it's just going to be me talking to myself in a padded room, imagining I'm talking to them, and that's kind of my main plan. So just those things.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you're living the dream. Like a lot of people, they've some people don't know what they want, and some people do know what they want, and they just want to do that and not have to do all this business and marketing stuff. And it sounds like with Fiverr in the picture and with your assistant in the picture, it sounds like you kind of have all that sort of that stuff in place. And I like your mindset as far as like the instant voicemails, or as far as what pans out. Like you're almost like trying this sort of experiments, and maybe like 90% of the experiments kind of don't pan out, but that 10% that's left, it's like you're just kind of doing more of that. And then if things spin off to other things like this instant voicemails thing, then that's a thing that might not pan out, or it might pan out. And if it does, well, then that's another sort of a direction to go to. So is instantvoicemails.com, is that the place for people to buy and download those voicemails?
It sure is.
Cool. And then just to make sure that people can find you on Fiverr, how do people find you there?
I am fiverr.com /Red Horrocks, and I have a funny spelling. It's REDD, and then my last name Horrocks is HORROCKS.
Cool. A funny spelling, but it makes you stand out, right?
Well, and it was never intended to be that way. I've been called Red since I was 12, and it's always been with two D's. So I just that's it's not really like a handle. It's actually that's actually my name.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I think it's a cool name, better than like John Smith or something, right? Got to have something interesting. And so,
Well, you call
so
it with a Y or something. I don't know.
I mean, maybe whatever it evolves to, right?
Yeah.
So any other URLs besides fiverr.com/Red Horrocks and instantvoicemails.com?
Those are you can see my my main website and portfolio at redhorrocks.com, which is the same spelling. And there's I've done a couple of other neat little projects and podcasts, and you can see some of my portfolio there and get in touch with me if you need anything.
Perfect. So all kinds of places, redhorrocks.com, fiverr.com/redhorrocks, and instantvoicemails.com. And I mean, I want to thank you, Red, for stopping by the show. I mean, I know it's kind of like a weird thing to sort of share some of your secrets and also kind of talk about yourself, but I really enjoyed just sort of hearing about your story and hearing about just this huge like workload and client load you've built up doing this thing that you love, and you make a lot of money but also don't spend a lot of time, and you have all these other kind of cool projects. So it's been really interesting hearing like your entrepreneurial mindset just as far as like what you've grown and what you're trying and how you make decisions. So I mean, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing some of these Fiverr insights, and thanks, and keep doing what you're doing. Please take a second to rate and subscribe to The Robert Plank Show in the iTunes Store. It's free. robertplank.com/iTunes.